Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has been re-elected with an emphatic victory, official results show. Out of more than 40 million votes cast, he received 57%, defeating his main rival, a conservative cleric. Mr. Rouhani, a moderate who agreed a deal with world powers to limit Iran's nuclear program, pledged to remain true to his promises. The decisive victory gives him a strong mandate to seek reforms and revive Iran's ailing economy, analysts say. The president received close to 23 million votes, Interior Minister Abdulreza Rahmani Fazli said on state television, in an election that had an unexpectedly high turnout of about 70%. In his first remarks after winning the poll, Mr. Rouhani said on Twitter, in Persian, "Great people of Iran, you're the winners of the election." His main challenger, former prosecutor Ebrahim Raisi, received 38.5%, or 15.7 million votes, not enough to take the election to a second round. Voting time had been extended by 5 hours on Friday, until midnight. Election officials said the extensions were due to requests and the enthusiastic participation of people. The economy seems to be the #1 challenge. Mr. Rouhani, 68, signed a nuclear deal between Iran, the US and other countries in 2015. International sanctions were lifted as a result, but average Iranians say they do not feel the economic benefits in their daily lives. While oil exports have rebounded and inflation is back at single digits, unemployment remains high, especially among the young people. Iran's hardliners had pulled all the stops and mobilized all their resources to bring out as many people as possible to grab the last center of power in Iran that was not under their control, namely the executive branch. Sensing an effort by the hardliners, supporters of President Rouhani who back his promises to steer the country toward moderation came out in big numbers too. Turnout has been unprecedented. In Tehran, 5 million people turned out to vote, twice as many as in 2013. This was a revenge of the people against the hardliners who intimidated them, jailed them, executed them, drove them to exile, pushed them out of their jobs, and discriminated against women. President Rouhani will now have a bigger mandate to push through his reforms, to put an end to extremism, to build bridges with the outside world, to put the economy back on track. Iranians have said a resounding yes to President Rouhani who, in recent years and particularly during the last several weeks of campaigning, promised to expand individual and political freedoms and make all those centers of power, like the Revolutionary Guard, accountable. He also promised a moderate vision and an outward-looking Iran and, at rallies, openly attacked the conservative-dominated judiciary and security services. Another challenge, experts say, will come from abroad, and the relations with the new U.S. government. President Donald Trump opposes the nuclear deal which eased sanctions on the Middle Eastern country, but his White House renewed it earlier this week. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani handily won re-election in what amounts to a victory for the Shiite nation's reformist camp and a sign that citizens favor fruitful engagement with the outside world. "I humbly bow my head down to you," Rouhani said to his people in a tweet translated from Farsi. "I will remain loyal to my promise to you." Rouhani, who defeated his conservative challenger Ebrahim Raisi in the Friday elections, garnered 57% of the vote, Interior Minister Abdulreza Rahmani Fazli said. He'll serve another 4 years in the post. "This hope with which you've entrusted me, I do feel the weight of this responsibility," Rouhani said in a televised address, "and I do pray to God to be a worthy carrier of your hopes and your dreams." Rouhani reached out to all citizens, from his supporters to his political rivals and detractors, and asked for their help. "I do respect my political opposition," he said. The election, he said, revealed the country's unity and was not an opening for the deepening of divides. Prevailing after the vote, he said, were the Islamic faith, freedom, independence and national self-reliance. "No one can think of dividing us along ethnic, tribal, economic or geographical lines," he said. Looking outside Iran's borders, Rouhani said his nation aspires to live in peace and friendship with the rest of the world. But in a nod to tense relations with its adversaries and rivals, he added that his country is not ready or willing to be threatened or be sanctioned. The victory reverberated in seats of power across the globe, on the Iranian streets and at the highest level of Iranian power. Among the first world leaders to issue congratulations to Rouhani were Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Iran's Supreme Leader Grand Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, communicating in a series of tweets, lauded the high turnout and called it glorious and historic for Iranian elections. More than 40 million Iranian voters flocked to polling stations Friday, according to the head of Iran's Interior Ministry State Elections Committee. More than 70% of eligible voters cast ballots. A new record was set, he said, referring to presidential election turnout, and noted that the result showed increasing progress of Iranian nation. The victor of the elections were the Iranian people and the Islamic Republic establishment, who despite enemies' efforts won the great nation's trust, Khamenei said. I voted for Mr. Rouhani, said Mostafa, a voter in Tehran who spoke to CNN. And I am proud of him because he showed all the world we are a good country. Our goal is peace for our world. And I am proud of my president. Rouhani, a moderate, was a key architect of the 2015 nuclear deal with the United States, the European Union and other partners, and his first term was marked by an emergent international outreach. The agreement has been controversial in both the United States and Iran, and it emerged as a top campaign issue, with the election seen in part as a referendum on the deal. Raisi, who got 38% of the vote, had been widely seen as Khamenei's preferred candidate. But Rouhani had history and hope on his side. No sitting president has failed to win a second term since 1981. Rouhani's engagement with the outside world, in spite of economic sanctions and visa restrictions, resonated with voters, especially those in affluent areas. Under the nuclear deal, Iran would reduce its stockpile of low-enriched uranium by 98% and significantly scale back its number of installed centrifuges. In exchange, the United States and the European Union would lift sanctions that have crippled the country's economy. Rouhani has had a tough time defending the agreement, and his opponents have accused him of not making good on his promises. He billed the deal as one that would thrust open the gates of economic opportunity, bring the country out of its isolation, and create millions of jobs for Iranians. The agreement has brought a string of billion-dollar deals with Western firms for airplanes and oil exploration in Iran. But the benefits have been largely limited by a fall in global oil prices and U.S. President Donald Trump's election, which introduced uncertainty for investors. Trump has repeatedly threatened to rip up the nuclear deal. For the average Iranian, the results so far have been lackluster, and Raisi repeatedly accused Rouhani of sacrificing Iran's sovereignty for a fool's bargain. The election comes as Trump visits Saudi Arabia, the heart of the Sunni branch of Islam. The Saudis and other Gulf states hope Trump will take a harder line on Iran than his predecessor, President Barack Obama. Tensions have long festered between Sunnis and Shiites, particularly in Iraq, where Sunnis are a minority, and in Syria, where the Gulf states and Iran have backed different sides in the civil war there. Gulf states have been backing anti-government rebels. Russia has been allied with Iran on behalf of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government. Its president, Vladimir Putin, sent a congratulatory telegram to Rouhani, the Kremlin said on its website. The Russian president also expressed confidence in the further successful implementation of the agreements, including those achieved during Hassan Rouhani's recent official visit to Russia, in the interests of the friendly peoples of the two countries, in the framework of efforts to maintain stability and security in the Middle East and the world generally, the Kremlin statement said. Assad sent a cable to Rouhani congratulating him for the trust that was given to him by the Iranian people to continue strengthening Iran's position and its role in the region and the world as a whole. The Iranian president, Hassan Rouhani, has been re-elected in a landslide victory, endorsing his efforts to re-engage with the West and offer greater freedoms at home. With a huge turnout, polling stations stayed open until midnight in parts of the country, defying concerns that moderates disillusioned by the weak economy or slow pace of change would not vote. Iran's Interior Minister, Abdulreza Rahmani Fazli, announced live on state television that Rouhani received 23,549,616 votes, 57%, compared with his conservative rival Ebrahim Raisi, who won 15,786,449 votes, 38.5%. More than 41.2 million people voted out of 56 million who were eligible to do so. The two other lesser-known candidates, Mostafa Akhamur and Mostafa Hashemi Taba, got 478,215 and 215,450 votes respectively. Hope prevailed over isolation, the former president and key Rouhani ally Mohammad Khatami posted on Instagram, along with a photo of Rouhani making a victory sign, Reuters reported. Iran's state television congratulated Rouhani on his re-election. The foreign minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif, said, "We derive stability not from coalitions, but from our people, who, unlike many, do vote. Iranians must be respected and are ready to engage." The incumbent saw off a strong challenge from Raisi, a fellow cleric with radically different politics who stirred up populist concerns about the sluggish economy, lambasted Rouhani for seeking foreign investment and appealed to religious conservatives. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, issued a statement addressed to the Iranian people in which he praised the massive and epic turnout. "The winner of the elections is you, the Iranian people, and the Islamic establishment, which has managed to win the increasing trust of this big nation despite the enemy's plot and effort," he wrote. Khamenei did not congratulate Rouhani directly in the statement, in contrast to his similar statement in 2013. Trita Parsi, of the National Iranian American Council, said the results showed Iranians had chosen a path of gradual transformation through peaceful participation. President Rouhani's convincing win is a sharp rebuke to Iran's unelected institutions that were a significant brake on progress during his first term, he said. It is also a rebuke of Washington hawks who openly called for either a boycott of the vote, or for the hardline candidate Ebrahim Raisi to win in order to hasten a confrontation. He said it was now time for Rouhani to deliver on the promises that inspired people to vote him back in. He must take decisive action to protect the human rights and civil liberties of the Iranian people, pursue improved relations with the world, and promote economic growth for the Iranian people. The hardline forces behind Iran's arbitrary arrests and spiking executions may not answer to Rouhani directly, but the Iranian people who elected him expect him to do more in his second term to bring about change. In Iran's unique and uneasy hybrid of democracy and theocracy, the president has significant power to shape government, although he is ultimately constrained by the supreme leader. Khamenei, a hardliner thought to have favored Raisi in the election and as a possible successor for his own job, generally steers clear of daily politics but controls powerful bodies from the judiciary to the Revolutionary Guards. Despite losing the overall race, Raisi appeared to have won enough votes to allow him to campaign for office again or justify his promotion in unelected bodies. "The election's victor is clear, kudos to our rivals," tweeted the editor of Mashrig News, which supported Raisi in the elections. Other well-connected media personalities close to Raisi also conceded. Rouhani's campaign headquarters said there was no plan to hold a celebratory rally. Iranians are usually quick to celebrate such victories, mainly by honking car horns or dancing in streets or distributing sweets. The scale of voter turnout was the highest for many years. The governor of the northern province of Gilan was quoted as saying the turnout there was 80%. In Yazd, the home city of former reformist president, Mohammad Khatami, there was 91% participation. Fear of a Raisi presidency prompted many in Iran to vote. In Tehran, even political prisoners such as the prominent human rights lawyer Narges Mohammadi cast their votes inside the notorious Evin prison. And the double Oscar-winning film director Asghar Farhadi voted in Cannes while participating at the festival. Rouhani's victory will be welcomed by Iranian reformists as well as the country's opposition Green movement. Opposition leaders under house arrest, Mir Hossein Mousavi, his wife, Zahra Rahnavard, and Mehdi Karoubi, had urged people to vote for Rouhani. The president changed his tone on the campaign trail in order to appeal to the opposition. Ya Hossein, Mir Hossein was a ubiquitous slogan chanted by Rouhani fans in almost every place he campaigned in the 3 weeks before the vote.